Hello everyone and welcome to the first RIPEstat Demo of 2012. My name is Vasco Asturiano and I'm a software engineer working as part of the RIPEstat development team. In this demo we will be guiding you through the latest features and improvements available in RIPEstat since the last public demo. We'll start with a brief introduction to RIPEstat for brand newcomers. After that we will talk about some new features that we have done since the last demo. We will do a brief demonstration of some of these features. After that we'll talk about possible future features that we will include in RIPEstat, and then we'll mention some feedback channels that you can use to get in touch with us. So a brief introduction on RIPEstat. RIPEstat is a modular and extendable toolbox developed by the RIPE-NCC. Its purpose is to act as a single point of entry for accessing internet-related data in both plain format and through visual representation. It includes both real-time information as well as historical, and it is meant to serve as a platform for network troubleshooting, data analysis and scientific research. We do regular demos such as this one, describing the progress of features and functionality in the tool. An important thing to note is that RIPEstat is being developed iteratively using user feedback. For this reason, your voice is important and we urge you to get involved and let us know what you find useful and what you are missing so that we can better tailor the shape and functionality of the tools to your own needs. We will talk about the appropriate channels for doing this towards the end of the presentation. A brief summary of what we will talk about today. We have two new APIs, and we will discuss also how this will impact the architecture of our current web application. After that, we will briefly mention some effort that we've been doing about performance monitoring and the improvements that we've done. So, we have two new APIs present in RIPEstat. One is the Data API and the other one is the Widget API. The Data API is a feature that's been a popular request among our users. It gives you direct access to the processed data used in RIPEstat. It will give you structured data that you can directly use in your own applications. On the other hand, the Widget API is a collection of portable scripts and design elements that make use of the data that's provided by the Data API. Based on this data, the Widget API can create the plugins that you already know on RIPEstat and put them in any context, even in your own web page. These two APIs will allow you to better make use of RIPEstat, its data and the visualizations that it provides. You will be able to bring RIPEstat functionality closer to you, for example, including it in your own website or integrate it in your own application. Based on the Widget and Data API, you have the choice of using only the data or importing a complete widget into your web page. First, we will have a look at the Widget API. So this is how it works. You basically embed a small piece of HTML code that includes a script call, and when this is present in an HTML page, it will create a widget such as this one. So as you can see from the above description, you just include the Widget API library. You say which widget you want to build, which resource you want to build it for, and the widget is automatically built as an element in your HTML page. Now, as we said, so this is embeddable in potentially any HTML website. It is based in JavaScript and HTML5 for the visualizations that it uses. The widget then, after it's built, it fetches the data directly from our Data API by the browser. You define the content of the Widget API by the way that you configure it. So when you say you want to see the content for a certain prefix or for a certain AS. You define it in the configuration, and that will make its content dynamically adapt to that. You can also customize its layout and say to fit better where it's embedded. You can say that you want it in a certain size and you want certain elements to be visible and other elements not to be visible. You can also manipulate the widget after it's rendered by just saying you want to get the data that it currently contains, or you want to actually update its current content with a new resource or something like that. Something important to know is that this is work in progress, and there is still some things that need a little fixing, like the style needs to be a little bit more polished and things like that. But the good thing is that you can actually use this already. It's in beta testing mode, but you can actually access these widgets yourself already from now. Here is a brief list of the widgets that we have available. We did not convert yet all the plugins that we have in RIPEstat to widgets, but the ones that you see here you can already use. You can actually see that there is two new widgets that were not present in the old RIPEstat, in the current RIPEstat, and these are two simple widgets that just tell you what is your IP address, which is a very simple case, and if you give it an IP address or a prefix, it can tell you the network information of this input. For more detailed explanation about how the Widget API works and all its features, I urge you to have a look at the documentation that's found in this URL. Now let's have a look at the Data API. So basically this is a RESTful interface that we offer over HTTP, and it's meant to give you direct access to the processed data that's present in the plugins of RIPEstat. So it can return this data in various formats. Currently this is only JSON, but it can be expanded to other formats. So if you feel that a certain format is useful for you, please get in touch with us and let us know, and according to this we will adapt it. As said before, the data API is used by the widgets, so after a widget is built, the data is fetched by the browser directly from the Data API. Here you can see a simple example of how this works. So it's basically an HTTP URL, and you specify which service you want the data for, which format. And here you can see you have in the data field, it shows you your IP address, which is the plugin that you asked it for, and you see some other meta information, such as if this information is cached, what is the version of the Data API, etc. So the syntax, you can specify the plugin name, the format, and all the attributes that are required for this service. In a more advanced example, you can see here for the plugin announced prefixes that you're actually specifying two parameters, and the data that returns from the Data API is a more complex structure than the one mentioned before, and will contain the information based on what was the input. Once again, there's a documentation page for the Data API, and you can check it out in this URL. Now, having those two new APIs available caused us to rethink the architecture of our current web application. We thought, since we have these tools at our disposal, why not make ourselves consumers of our own services? And that's what we actually began doing. As shown here, going from the right side to the left side, we aim to simplify and transform our web page into purely static, which merely includes the widgets via our new API, And then these widgets further connect to the data API for fetching the required data. Now, as you can see, this is different from what we had, in which all the processing was done in the web application itself. And it is meant to illustrate the point that the new APIs can allow anyone to build their own web applications using or based on RIPEstat functionality. Of course, we don't have all the widgets already migrated, so not all the plugins are available in widget format, and we will go through a transition periods in which you see new widgets coexisting with current RIPEstat plugins. And here you can see like the difference between two. On the left side you find a new widget, and on the right side the normal plugin as it's seen on RIPEstat. There is a few layout differences, and if you have good eyes you can actually spot this. You see that there is a new button called grab, which will allow you to actually further embed this widget into another HTML page. So it's a way to share the widgets. We also show the source data in a different format, and we'll have a look at that a little bit more later. Now we'd like to do a little demonstration about how these widgets and how these all new APIs work. Let's assume, for example, that you would want to embed this widget in your own web page. You can merely go here, and there is a piece of code here that you can use to embed in your own web page. So let's copy this, and I have here just a sample page, which is just nothing, it's just dummy data. And let's see how it would work if we would want to put a widget on this page. So I want to put it above this area here, so I will just look for this element. It is here. I'll just copy paste this piece of code, refresh the page, and there we are. We have a widget there in place. Now, so a quick look at the features of this. We have a RIPEstat logo there, which will lead you back to RIPEstat. In the source data, if we open this section, we can see the data API call that was used to grab the data used in this widget, and you can see the data that actually returned from this API call, right? So this is the specific data that's being used by this widget right now. If you want to put this into a URL that you can use further, then you can just either copy this URL or click here. It will do it using any of these formats. The grab section, we have seen it already. So we have this piece of code that represents this widget as it is. We have here a quick example and a link to the documentation that will allow you to do more complex operations. We have a permalink that leads you back to RIPEstat and will recreate the current state of this widget. So if you want to share with a colleague and you do not want to embed the widget in your own web page, you can use this permalink to represent that. And the info shows the methodology as we had already in the current RIPEstat. Now let's do something more fun with it. Let's say I want another widget. So we just have to take this line, which is the one that creates a widget, and we create another one here. Perhaps put a little break. Let's say I want the What's My IP plugin, and this one does not have a resource as input. Let's see what this does. So now we have two widgets, one on the side of the other one. The first is the one that gives you your IP address, which is this one that we just specify. And below we have the one that we already had. Now we want the first one to be smaller so that it aligns better with this part here on the right. So we can use the styling parts to do this. You can see more details of how this is done in documentation, but for now I'll just show you. You can specify size small, for example, and besides that you actually also want to disable the title and the embed code part. This is done within an array. Let's see if this works. So there we go. We see that the widget adapted to the size that you specified, and you can see that the grab button disappeared because that's what we asked. Now we can even go a step further and say I don't even want to see the container, and I do not want to see the logo either. So it will give me just the content. That is possible. We see only the content here. So if this is what you intend, it's possible to do. Now another feature is that you can further manipulate the widget after it is created. So if we assign this widget to a variable, let's call it my widget when it is created, and we can then do some operations with this. We can say let us print what is one of the methods is to get the URI that corresponds to the data API call. So let's see if this works. So there we go. We made an operation that outputs this, and this is an information that was stored within the widget itself. You can go further and say at this point I actually want to update the widget, and I want to show I want to show it for a new resource. So instead of AS3333, which is what we've built it for, I now want it to become AS12. Let's see what happens. So we had this already, this alert, and as you see, this have changed to the AS12 after we've printed that information. This is some of the things that you can do. You can even go a step further and say I want to do a callback once the data is loaded on the widget, and what I want it to do is I want to alert the data that's in the widget itself. For this to be properly formatted, we probably need to be able to parse this properly. Let's go and see if this worked. So we've seen this step already. Well, actually, there was a little glitch. This is not printify, but this is stringify. This is the correct function of it. So there we go. We have the widget changed itself, and after it has loaded its last data, it printed its own data. So hopefully this illustrates a little bit the potential of having these widgets, and we would be very interested in see how you can what are your experiences with this, and how you can use the widgets for your own benefit. So please contact us, either if you have any questions or if you have any suggestions, or even for some cases in which you might be using it. So we would be very interested in that. So now back to our presentation. As mentioned in the beginning, one of the other efforts that we've been doing was to measure the performance of the plugins more in detail, and so we've made a few tools that allows us to see more precisely what is actually happening and what people are using and how much they are using it. And the main purpose of this is to increase the understanding of possible performance bottlenecks and what we can do about them to solve it. So this is just a small example of what we can see. This is the distribution of the usage per plugin, and you can see from this that it's actually quite even at the moment, because all of the plugins are in RIPEstat as well, and all of them are loaded at the same time. Now, we actually expect this to change once people will start embedding widgets, because we expect there to be preference of some widgets over other ones. So this is an interesting thing to keep track of, and we can also see where most of the interest is in. Something else that we can see is what has been the volume of queries over time, and how are these separated between how much of it is cached and how much of it is new queries. And we've seen already a couple of cases in which there are peaks. For example, here in 14th of November, we've actually noticed what this was about. This was just actually a single user just using one of the plugins to download the whole AS list one by one. So AS1, AS2, AS3, and each of these was a query. And of course this contributed to a massive increase in the number of queries. And then it stopped, and then it started again. And this is fine, this is no problem, but actually it's probably not the best way to do such a thing. So something to keep in mind is, if you would want to do such a thing that requires a lot of sequential queries, perhaps you can actually talk to us and say what you want, and we can provide a better way to do this. So it does not harm us, but we can probably help you in a better way if you let us know. Okay, and we've also given a little step to improve the performance based on what we've seen, and some plugins we've actually already migrated to a new backend, and the plugins listed here, and you can see from this that the performance has actually increased quite significantly. So if you look at the brown was the old backend, and you can see that the response times are roughly between 5 and 10 seconds, and the green represents the new backend, and you see that this has jumped to between like 2 and perhaps 4 seconds or something like that. So that's quite a significant improvement. So we want to do more in this direction, and we want to migrate plugins to their appropriate backends, and we want to target the ones that more can profit from these changes. Okay, now we have a quick look at what is coming after this. For the Widget API and as well for the Data API, one of the main points of focus is to add more services and more widgets to cover the existing plugins that we have in RIPEstat. So at one point you can actually replicate the whole functionality of what we have on the RIPEstat web application purely through widgets. This is one of the things. We also wish to include new data sources which might lead to new plugins. We're thinking about things like including RIPE Atlas data and some other things. This is something that we have in the pipeline. We want to continue with the backend performance improvements. We want to keep monitoring and keep seeing how we can do better in this area. We have also a few ideas for what plugins we can do next and how we can improve the plugins. We intend to extend the existing ones and and add more detail where it's appropriate. We want to add history when there's a justification for it, more control over the granularity, perhaps more parameters. We want to do some effort in this direction. We have some other ideas for perhaps new plugins, like doing IPv6 capability per AS. This would be based on data collected by APNIC. We probably also have AS routing consistency coming up. So these are things that we have in the pipeline. So we encourage you to use the new APIs that was just described and to play around with RIPEstat. And we would like to hear about your own experiences about it and what you find useful and what you might be missing from it. We would be very interested in hearing about your feedback. A couple of ways that you can contact us about things. You can, obviously, the simplest way is to leave some comments on the RIPEstat website. If you want to initiate a bit of a discussion, you can use the MAT working group, the Measurement Analysis and Tools working group. Here is the URL where you can find it, and the email for the mailing lists. If you want to contact us directly, you can email us at stat@ripe.net, and if you want to keep up to date with news, there's a Twitter hash that you can use. Well, this concludes this RIPEstat demo session. The next demo will be towards the end of February 2012. You can keep up to date with this on RIPE Labs, as it will be advertised there. You can also find the previous sessions archived in RIPE Labs. As mentioned before, please don't hesitate to contact us if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions. You can do this through the channels already mentioned in the previous slide. For now, I'd like to thank you for watching this RIPEstat demo, and I hope to see you next time.